You never forget the smell of wet cedar and fear. For most people, that smell means being lost. For me, it means Kip. My name is Ethan Hayes. I was 10 years old in the summer of 2000 when my father, Elias, and I found the Sasquatch. We didn't hunt for him, we stumbled across him. Our land bordered the deep woods of the Olympic Peninsula, and my father was an anomaly, a retired Army veterinarian who chose to live as an educated hermit, prioritizing quiet observation over human noise. It was Kip's cry that led us. Not a roar, but a deep, pitiful, broken sound, like metal shearing under immense pressure. We found him near the creek bed, a massive figure, easily 7 feet tall, slumped against a mossy boulder, shivering, his immense body trembling with fever. He was juvenile, still growing, but his pain was universal. A deep, ragged gash ran across his flank, clearly inflicted by a massive, sharp weapon, possibly a logging machine or an illegal, heavy-caliber trap. My father, Elias, didn't panic. He saw an animal in pain, and his training took over. We spent the next 3 hours stabilizing him, administering antibiotics from my father's emergency vet kit, and covering the wound. He was too weak to resist. The next challenge was concealment. We couldn't leave him, and we couldn't call anyone. My father knew the truth about Bigfoot sightings. They weren't about discovery. They were about extermination. So we moved him, a terrifying all-night effort using ropes, a winch, and an ancient farm sled, into the most isolated structure on our property, an old, derelict logging barn completely surrounded by dense second-growth timber. We called him Kip. It meant sleep in an old northern dialect my father used. Kip spent the next 14 years with us. The first year was about survival. He was intelligent, learning our gestures, understanding simple commands, and communicating his comfort or discomfort with low, guttural clicks and subtle hand movements. He wasn't a pet. He was a silent, massive guest, observing our small, quiet world. As he healed, the mystery deepened. His physical wound closed entirely within 5 years, leaving a white, almost invisible scar. But Kip didn't leave. He could have walked out any night, easily shattering the barn doors, but he remained. He established a routine that was baffling. He would eat the specially prepared, complex nutrient packs my father mixed for him, groom his thick, dark fur, and spend hours in the same, precise location within the barn, a small, dirt-floored corner, far from the light. He was silent, immense, and profoundly anchored. It became clear that Kip wasn't waiting for his strength to return. He was guarding something. 14 years of silence taught us more than science ever could. It taught us that the Sasquatch was not a monster, but a sentient, deeply emotional intelligence capable of incredible patience. But the question remained, what kept him from returning to his own kind? Why did he dedicate over a decade of his life to a small, cold, dirt corner of our dilapidated barn? The secret lay not in his presence, but in the ground beneath where he slept. Before I detail the sudden moment Kip finally left, and the shocking artifact we unearthed from his sleeping spot, if you read this confession, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It might sound strange, but knowing someone else is listening, that this story isn't just going to vanish into the dark, is the only comfort I have left. Thank you. Now, let me tell you what the sleeping guardian was protecting. Kip was fully healed by 2008, but he remained. He had grown to a full 9 feet tall, his fur a deep, midnight black, and his musculature a quiet testament to power. He was an intimidating presence, but his eyes, deep, intelligent, and sorrowful, contained a patience that defied animal instinct. He was our silent education. My father and I learned to communicate using subtle shifts in posture and tone. Kip would watch the stars through the cracked window pane, focusing intensely on specific constellations that were barely visible to the naked eye. He wasn't just observing the night sky, he was reading it. But his primary focus was always his sleeping spot. The corner was nothing special, packed dirt, cold, and dark. Yet, Kip would meticulously clear this small area every morning before settling down for his long, silent rest periods. He never dug. He only swept the area clean, then lay down, curling his massive frame over that specific patch of earth. My father hypothesized that the creature was imprinted on the spot, a residual scent, or a thermal anomaly. We tested it with infrared sensors. The temperature was normal. We tested the soil. Composition was normal. But Kip's vigil was absolute. He was a sentinel at a post we couldn't see. The change came abruptly in the summer of 2014. The local Forest Service reported an unusual event, a series of powerful, focused electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, originating deep within the Olympic National Park. They dismissed it as atmospheric interference. My father and I felt a cold dread. Kip heard it too. For 3 days, he was agitated. He didn't sleep. He paced the small perimeter of the barn, stopping only to press his face to the dirt of his sleeping spot, making the low, resonant clicks that were his purest form of distress. On the third night, the EMP stopped. The silence that followed was heavy and final. The next morning, Kip was gone. The immense, heavy barn doors were gently pushed open, left ajar just enough for his massive body to pass. There was no damage, no trace of panic, only the cold, final absence of his warmth. He didn't leave a sign, a goodbye, or a trace of fur. He simply terminated his vigil and returned to the wilderness, finally free. We stood in the empty barn, overwhelmed by the quiet. We had lost a member of our strange, silent family. Then, my father looked down at the empty, swept patch of dirt where Kip had slept for 14 years. He was waiting for the signal, my father whispered, the cold clarity of the vet cutting through the grief of the father. The wound wasn't keeping him here, Ethan. The wound was the excuse. He was guarding the asset. It was a custodial watch. We fetched shovels, a pickaxe, and our old ground-penetrating radar unit, a leftover from my father's engineering days. The earth was dense, frozen clay. We dug for hours through the packed sediment, expecting to find nothing more than a deep rock formation. At 4 feet down, the pickaxe struck something that made no sound. It was the absence of sound that was terrifying. No metallic ring, no hollow echo, just a dead, muffled thud, as if hitting a block of hardened rubber. We cleared the dirt away, revealing the object. It was perfectly cubic, about the size of a microwave oven, resting in a pocket of strangely desiccated earth. The material was glossy, matte black, absorbing all light, and humming faintly. It was utterly, terrifyingly alien. It was the reason for Kip's 14 years of silence. The sleeping guardian hadn't been resting. He had been protecting a black box of non-terrestrial origin. We used thick logging chains to lift the box out of the hole. It weighed hundreds of pounds, and its surface was cold, despite the faint internal hum. The material was seamless, no welding, no screws, no entry points. It was a single, perfect volume of synthesized density. My father, the engineer, immediately saw the complexity. This isn't made, it's grown. It's technology beyond our periodic table, possibly grown under extreme conditions, or fabricated in zero gravity. We brought the box inside the cabin and placed it on the floor. It was inert, silent, and massive, a black hole of information sitting in our simple wooden room. Then, as we stood back, the box activated. There was no sound, only an internal change in light. The matte black surface became translucent, and internal components, thousands of minute, crystalline wires and glowing nodes, were visible, floating in a viscous, golden liquid. The box was a massive, wetware processing unit. From the top surface of the box, a single, highly focused beam of light shot upward, hitting the ceiling. It wasn't a visible light. It was a complex, phased projection that passed through the wood. My father and I rushed outside to see what the projection was aimed at. In the cold night air, above our cabin, there was nothing. No light, no sound. But when we returned to the box, the projection had changed. It was no longer aimed at the sky. It was projecting a holographic image onto the floor of our cabin. The image was a star map. But it wasn't our star map. It was a dense, complex arrangement of systems, colored and coded, centered around a constellation that even my father, the amateur astronomer, couldn't identify. The chilling realization. Kip was not guarding an archive of Earth's history. He was guarding a navigation beacon or a targeting device. The EMPs had been the signal. The device was ready for retrieval or activation. Kip's purpose was complete. The Sasquatch, the creature of Earth folklore, was a highly specialized, bio-integrated security guard for an extraterrestrial navigational device. As we stared at the projected star map, the box communicated directly, not through sound, but through the overwhelming, crushing sense of purpose that flooded our minds. It was a single command, clear and cold. Mission status, awaiting retrieval. Coordinates transmitted. Guardian status, relocated. Kip hadn't gone home. He had gone to report, or to be retrieved himself. He had served his term. The box then projected the final, terrifying image onto the star map, a pulsing red that centered squarely over our own cabin. The box had identified its current location. We knew instantly that the initial transmission, the EMPs, had been the Sasquatch's call, and that our handling of the box, our simple curiosity, had now made us the secondary guardians. We were attached to the device's security protocol. The full weight of the trauma hit me then. Kip, the gentle giant we had loved and cared for, wasn't just a visitor. He was an agent, and his departure was the final handover. I need to process this precise, devastating shift in reality. The box is active. The coordinates are out. Please take a moment right now and comment below with what you think really happened. Was Kip's injury self-inflicted to ensure he stayed to guard the box? And what kind of entity is coming for a 14-year-old active navigation beacon? Your interpretation is vital to understanding our next desperate move. The box glowed brighter, the humming intensifying. I realized the profound danger. The object was not an inert artifact. It was an active, homing device. They're watching you too. The silent message from the box screamed into my mind, confirming that the coordinates were received. The black box, humming with deep space intent, was the end of our quiet life. My father, Elias, looked at the glowing star map projected on our floor, his face reflecting a lifetime of scientific inquiry, ending in impossible terror. "We can't destroy it," he said, his voice ragged. "It's too dense. And if we try, we risk activating some kind of defense mechanism that might flatten the entire valley." The decision was clear. We couldn't stay. We couldn't wait for the entity that commanded Kip to arrive. We had to take the box and become the buffer. We sealed the box inside a makeshift, heavily padded container, wrapped in every layer of thermal and electromagnetic shielding we owned. A futile gesture, but a necessary one. We loaded the essentials into our beat-up pickup truck. The silence of the Olympic forest was now a menacing, conscious weight. We drove south, away from the latitudes that Kip knew. We left the cabin, the creek, and the memory of our gentle, silent friend. We were no longer hermits. We were fugitives carrying a glowing, ancient piece of alien technology. The trauma is the transformation of the familiar into the utterly alien. The Sasquatch is real, but it is not a creature of Earth folklore. It is the ground support for a non-terrestrial intelligence. Kip wasn't waiting for his parents. He was waiting for the all-clear signal from his distant commanders. We are now the silent, unofficial custodians of the beacon. The box occasionally pulses, transmitting data, reminding us that its mission is ongoing. I spend my days learning astronomy, trying to decode the star map that now haunts my waking hours. I violated my father's rule of silence by telling this story. I am releasing this confession now, detailing the contents of Kip's sleeping spot, hoping that the public noise will overload the creature's surveillance network and maybe, just maybe, give us a few extra days of anonymity. We gave Kip 14 years of shelter, and in return, he gave us the most dangerous secret in human history. We are not alone, and the guardians of our forests are not ours. This is the end of my confession. I have told you what was buried beneath the sleeping guardian. It was an active, intergalactic homing beacon. If you found my story compelling, or if the cold reality of the Sasquatch's true mission chills you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below sharing your final thoughts on where Kip went after leaving the barn and what the relocated status truly means. The truth is useless unless it is shared.